Welcome to Dream Body Fitness and Lifestyle TV. We are continuing with our 12-part series on nutrition and wellness. Today's series number 2, and we are talking about macronutrients. As usual, I've got my brother and my colleague here, Billy, that we're going to co-host this show with. But I will let Billy start with how we people, our relationship, how fast we come to relate to food, and how the food pyramid programs us to eat the way we do now. Billy, let's go.
Steve, thank you very much. I find nutrition very fascinating. So for a long time, I had thought nutrition is a science. So if it's a science, it means we can measure, we can do everything, and we can agree, and have a consensus on how it works. But over the years, it has become more politics than science. And that's what makes it very fascinating and a very exciting topic. But what we're going to do today, we're going to stick to the science, and we're going to try and help our people just understand the basics of macronutrients. Macronutrients, because these are probably the key main nutrients that we consume at all times, and these nutrients are important because they play such a critical role in your metabolism. But before we start, most of us, we learned about nutrition through the food pyramid. Do you remember the food pyramid, Steve? Mm-hmm. So the food pyramid was a presentation of how we should eat. So in just basic terms, my writing is not the best, but you would have a pyramid like that. And at the bottom there, you would have your grains and carbohydrates. So you have your grains, I'll just say G and C. So you have your grains and carbohydrates. This is your breads, this is your rice, your potatoes, all those things. And then in the middle part, in the center part there, you will have fiber. And in your fiber there, you would have your fruits, you would have your vegetables, so your leafy greens, your kales, your cabbage. This is what you would have there. And then in the next section there, that's the section that would be preserved for your proteins. That's the section that would preserve for your proteins. And then in the last section would probably be your fats and probably salts, maybe water if you in some cases. So that would be the basic structure of supposedly how we should eat. What this suggested to people was that the majority or the highest amount of food that we should be having in our plate should be carbohydrates. And then we have some form of fiber. And then next is your protein, and then a little bit of fat. But what have we seen? What happened in the past 20, 30 years? We've seen a ballooning in the number of people that struggle with obesity. We've seen a ballooning in the number of people that struggle with metabolic conditions. And when we look at this, and we realize that when we started adopting this form of eating, and if you look at America, which has more better records, you'll find that when people started adopting this form of eating, that's when the numbers started going up in terms of obesity, in terms of diseases. Again, we have a similar trend in newer developing countries. Whenever a country develops, it adopts the American diet. And what happens? You see an increase in the number of people getting overweight, getting obese, and struggling with metabolic diseases.
Now, this being the basis, and as Billy explains here, you'll find that the more people diet, the fatter they become. The only thing that has become slimmer over the years is the size of your wallet, but your waistline has ballooned up. Now it brings us to look at this. Now we're going to have to look at this as the basis of our eating plans and the way that we eat. Now, number one here, this was approved by the American government. Now there is more politics here, or more economics here than there is science. There are two sides to nutrition, as he says. One, nutrition is the fastest growing and the fastest changing science in the world. Today they tell you eggs are bad for you. Somebody else tells you eggs are great tomorrow. Today they tell you carbohydrates are bad. Tomorrow they tell you don't eat fruits. So people are in a constant state of confusion. Majority of us as people, we are suffering from misformation overload. Now we want to break this down and look at this as the basis, because the easiest way is to look at where you are. How did you get to the size you are now? Is it because that you lack discipline? Is it because that you're just too lazy? Chances are, rather than focusing on what to eat, let us focus on why you're eating the way you eat. And that brings us basically for us breaking down here. So one of the things that we're going to go here is we will go down and start right here at the bottom, because this, as you can see, is the foundation of this pyramid. If the foundation is weak, then it doesn't really matter what we do at the top. So we're going to go here and break down the macronutrients that we get in our starchy carbohydrates. And that's what we want to start with here. What we're going to do here now, we're going to start with breaking down macronutrients. And as Billy has explained, we're going to go through carbohydrates, we will go through fats, and of course we're going to go through protein. But let's look at it from a pyramid point of view.
Yeah.
First, Billy, what is the definition of carbohydrates?
So carbohydrate is an energy-giving food. This is a food that your body primarily uses to produce energy. How is energy produced? When every carbohydrate, by the way, that you eat is eventually converted to a more soluble form in the form of glucose. When glucose gets into your cells, it undergoes some biological processes that eventually produce an energy in the form of ATP. So ATP is your energy currency. It's how your energy in the body is transferred. So that's really the primary function of carbohydrates. It's an energy-giving food.
Now, if we look at carbohydrates, we're going to break carbohydrates into three main parts. And we will start first here with starchy carbohydrates. Under starchy carbohydrates here, these are our traditional foods, and the best and the easiest way to define this, these are foods that are more in its natural form when you cook or when you eat them. And these, in most cases, are foods that if you ask or introduce them to your grandmother, she knows what it is. Yeah. If your grandmother can't pronounce or can't tell what that food is, chances are
I like that analogy.
Chances are it's not real food.
Yes.
So Billy, let's start with starchy carbohydrates. Yes. What do we put under here?
So we could have potatoes. We could have rice.
Rice.
We could have maize cobs.
Okay. Cobs.
Yes,
we have yams.
Potatoes. We've got the yams.
Sweet potatoes.
Yes.
Sweet potatoes. One of my favorite here.
I love it, man. I love it.
One of my favorite here, Billy, is plantains.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Anything here for breakfast? What should we bring in here for starchy carbs? Oats.
Oats. Yeah, we can have oats.
Jungle oats. Not oats easy.
Yes.
Jungle oats.
Yes.
So this, among many others, this becomes the kind of starchy carbohydrates. And irrespective of race and background, most of us will always get our starchy carbohydrate from one of these. Yeah. The truth is, nobody eats more than 5 different kinds of foods. It's only that when somebody tells you that they're going to put you on a diet, you start panicking.
Yes.
But majority of us at least eat
that.
One of these on a daily basis. Yeah. So second one here, Billy, we want to look at processed, sweet, or the so-called sugary carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Now, the definition for me here is the easiest way I find to define this is anything that tastes very good here, but at the back of your mind, you know.
You know. Yes.
Or the easiest way is when you go to the supermarket, anything that is on the aisle while you're waiting for the cashier belongs on this. What comes to mind here?
So that will be biscuits.
Biscuits.
That will be any form of sweets.
Sweets.
That's out there.
Cold drinks.
Cold drinks. All the stuff. Spaghettis.
Cold
all the
drinks.
processed.
Cakes.
Cakes, all that.
Pastry.
Pastries, absolutely.
And many chocolate.
Yeah.
This, we all know.
Yeah.
This is a poison of choice.
Absolutely.
Everybody goes through this. And then I'm going to bring down here something you spoke about earlier when we started here about fiber.
Yes.
As what's your definition of fiber here?
So fiber is more, there's 2 forms really, soluble and insoluble, but for this case, we'll look at insoluble fiber, the one that you find in your kale, for example, in your vegetables, your leafy greens, your cabbages, any fiber things that your body cannot necessarily digest, but play a critical role in generally your metabolism, just how your body breaks down its food. The higher the fiber you have, the better for it, in the sense of when you're looking at the GI, glycemic index as a function of your metabolism. So fiber is that kind of food.
So in other words, if I hear you correctly, you're talking about fiber being something that fills you but has no caloric
Yes,
content.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
When we talk about fiber, what kind of fiber are we talking about here? What comes to mind? What are the kind of foods that you know?
So I would say, like, I gave you an example of like kale. I gave you an example of
So
cabbage,
veggies,
veggies, spinach,
salads.
salads, that kind of.
What else comes to mind
You
here?
know, some husk, husk that you could get from some grains or some fruits. You could have that as fiber.
Now, what are the advantages? What are the benefits of fiber? Why must I eat fiber?
So fiber at mechanical level, when your food is digested, fiber helps just make it easier for your body to just digest and sort of push through the food within your system. So it adds bulk to your stool, and just allows you to be more regular at mechanical level. At scientific, at biological level, it's actually important in maintaining a sort of how I would say a high surface area of food. Why a surface area? That allows a slower digestion of the rest of for example, of the carbs. So when you're having carbs with sort of high fiber foods, you allow you sort of enable your digestive system to digest them at a slower rate, which is much healthier for your insulin spikes. So they play a critical role in that.
So two things I pick from that.
Yeah.
One, because of the larger surface area, it means it fills you.
Yes.
So you much fuller with less calories in your
Absolutely,
system.
yes, absolutely.
And then secondly, you're talking about the slowing down of the digestive process, which gives your body enough time to be able to extract as much nutrients
Absolutely.
out of your food.
After food, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So fiber becomes key.
Yeah.
Majority of women in South Africa, they suffer from IBS. 85% of our women, IBS. It's what's the meaning?
Irritable bowel syndrome.
It's
Irritable
bowel syndrome. Now, majority of them, and the number one cause of that is because they don't eat fiber.
Absolutely.
And what is the number one fiber when it comes to cereals that get sold in this country? It's what is this?
Cornflakes.
Not cornflakes.
Which one?
There is Billy. I see it. I see it
Yeah,
every time you go to the supermarket. Now, that's the number one. The number one cereal that is being sold in terms of fiber, and 85% of our women are suffering from IBS.
Yes.
Then automatically it means that kind of artificial fiber is not working.
Yeah.
So your recommendation is they have to try and increase this
Absolutely.
rather than that.
Yes, absolutely. So like you said in the beginning, Steve, you said if your grandmother can pronounce it, then chances are that it's good for you. And a lot of times, the closer the food is from its natural source, the better. And that's how, and that could be a guiding concept for you. Okay. So you are having cereal, fine. If you're having oats, you literally have just harvested the oats, and the processing is literally just taking off the husk and putting it in a pack. On the other hand, if you're processing cornflakes have gone through so many different processes from the time they were made into the thing that you get on your bowl, and that's completely something that is different from
You see, one of the things that I also use as a guiding factor for me here is, one, if you read on the box and they tell you extra fortified,
yes,
it means something had to be taken out.
Yes.
Now, what is it that they had to take out, and what did they put in?
Exactly.
So those becomes the most common questions we have to ask ourselves. So this from a physical point of view, these are the things when we're talking about carbohydrates. Yeah. So we will move on to, in the next topic, we'll get into the depth of this. When you join our private group, we'll get into the depth of breaking down to the minute level. We'll become very granular in terms of breaking it down and what kind of eating plan is going to include this kind of carbohydrates. But we will move into the next macronutrient. So we're moving on. We're coming on to the second macronutrient here. And the second macronutrient here is protein. Now, protein comes from the word proton. It's a Latin word that means numero uno, which is number one. So, Billy, why is it important for us to eat protein?
Steve, protein, I think everyone probably has heard that proteins are your building blocks of your body. Most of your body parts are literally simple protein. Your muscle mass is protein. So literally almost every single part of you.
So
is
what
made
are you
of protein.
saying? Are you saying muscle is stored protein?
Absolutely. So muscle is stored protein. So in fact, your protein reserve in the body is muscle. When you starve and you're not getting enough protein, the body quickly goes into your muscle and starts eating your muscle. So muscle is a protein reserve, and muscle is made of protein.
So protein, number one here, the benefits of protein we're talking is about?
It's a building block. So it's
Building
building
blocks.
yes.
Okay.
So this is the building block. This is what is the construction of your body.
Okay.
Is mostly protein.
Okay. Number two. What?
So protein also is you could call it a sort of a reservoir of extra carbohydrates. So if you go into your cells, if you go into your muscle cells, you'll find that there is a constituent called glycogen, which stores extra sugar, making it ready, keeping it ready for usage whenever it needs. So it plays that role as well. But it also plays that role.
So protein, in other words, protein cushions your body from being catabolic.
Absolutely, yes.
It stops your body from eating itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it's storage for glycogen.
For glycogen, yes.
What does protein has to do with structure?
So protein is the key. If you look at the fundamental building blocks of anything in the body, chances are that it's made of protein. From the DNA, the function of the DNA is to code for certain proteins to create whatever structure you have. For example, if it's your hair, keratin, the DNA of your hair cells would code for your body to produce the hair. If it's your nails, same thing. Whatever structure that you find in your body, it's literally coded for by the DNA, and the DNA codes it into protein. There's a whole system called protein synthesis involving your DNA, which helps produce structures.
So are we talking from, because I think those are two things we're talking about. One, you're talking about muscle repair and growth.
Yes.
Okay. So protein becomes muscle repair, muscle and organ repair.
Yes.
Okay, muscle and organ repair. Organ repair and growth.
And growth, yep.
And also, we're talking about structure from a form point of view. The more muscle you have, the more upright you are.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so structure and resistance against gravity.
Yes.
Because against gravity, because you find most old people, they walk like that.
Yes.
And this is what we call sarcopenia.
Yeah.
The reason why these people walk like this is because they have less muscle and what's pulling them?
Exactly.
That's pulling them. Is there any other reason why we need protein?
I think those are the key ones, really. Those are the
How
key.
about satiety?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to nutrition, definitely, it's in terms of feeling full quicker, in terms of long-lasting feeling of being full, instead of in terms of a higher quality calorie. So we always say calories are not equal. And protein gives you, for every gram of protein, you get 4 calories, similar with carbohydrates. But protein fills you for longer and sort of stays in the system longer, yeah.
And I think also one thing that for the ladies out there we have to talk about here is protein is metabolized at a very higher pace. So which means that when you have more muscle, you are burning fat outside the activities that you engaged inside the gym. Protein is like another human being.
Absolutely.
It consistently keeps on feeding itself. So here it's increased metabolism.
Absolutely.
Increased metabolism, and as most women will always say, for us men, we talk about building muscle, but for most women, we will always talk about toning.
Absolutely.
So if you want to tone, then protein becomes the key ingredient.
Absolutely.
Coming to this. Billy, the other thing here now that we have to talk about sources.
Yes.
What are the sources of protein?
So sources of protein are I think the key one that we've been having from the beginning of time for most men is meat. Meat is your easiest go-to protein.
Okay.
You could have egg as your source of protein.
Okay.
You know. And there's some people that probably don't eat meat for whatever reasons. Some people go to legumes as a source of protein. However, you need to understand that the amino acid range, you've got 20 amino acids which are essential, and sometimes you may not necessarily get them from one legume. So you might have to have a variety of legumes for you to be able to get all the necessary amino acids that you need.
So with this, you need to be more intentional.
You need to be more intentional around your protein intake, especially when you don't take any form of animal protein. You have to really be intentional around the vegetable
So
sources.
under meat, we're going to put beef, we're putting chicken,
Yeah.
we're putting fish, we're putting game,
Absolutely, yeah.
and of course the most common one that you'll find is things like ostrich.
Ostrich, yes.
I think they're more
those are good
common.
sources. Absolutely.
And for me, I will always say the easiest way for you to be able to identify what are the main sources of protein here is anything that walks, anything that swims, and anything that flies, apart from human beings, qualifies as a source of, it will always qualify as a source of protein.
Yes.
So we're going to move on. As we said, we're doing more an overview of what macronutrients are. Nutrition and human digestive system is a very intricate system. And for us to go through the whole system here, it will take us days. So we will do an overview, and then for you to get into the depth of this is by joining our inner circle group, where we'll be able to break this down, and you have the ability to ask questions one-on-one that will take you through it. So we will move forward, and we will go to the third macronutrient here, which is fat. We are taking you to the next macronutrient here, fats. There are two things that will always bring very big distress and arguments among people, and especially black people. And that is talking about Jesus in terms of religion, and of course about nutrition when it comes to fats. Most of us have fat phobia. Most people look at fat and they run away. And the majority of people, when they look at that piece of meat with that sinewy of white fat, all they can imagine is that fat ending where? On their hips. So majority of us avoid it. So when it comes to fat here, Billy, do we need fat?
We absolutely need fat. In fact, some of the school of thoughts are saying we can do without carbs, but we can't do without fat and protein. If you stopped eating fat, you'd be dead within 30 days. So that's how essential fat is in your body. It plays so many critical roles.
So let's go back to evolution.
Yeah.
When we didn't have supermarkets.
Yes.
We didn't have Woolies, we didn't have Pick and Pay, we didn't have Checkers. Who do you think had a higher chance of survival? The thin guy, or the person with fat, or the lean Shaka Zulu kind of guy?
Yes, it's the guy with fat. And funny enough, you put it that way. If you look at some of the uncontacted tribes, there's tribes that you find in the forest in Amazon. I think we have sand people that live in the desert. If you look at their body profile, you would expect them to be extra lean because obviously they don't eat as many calories as we do. But you realize that a lot of them are not necessarily muscle out lean, but they kind of have quite an amount of body fat in their bodies. Fat is important for survival. So the guy with enough body fat is likely to survive better than the guy who's ultra lean.
So why do you think then black women have bigger bumps than other races?
Because I think our bodies didn't know that one day we'll walk into a supermarket and eat whatever we want every single day. I think the human body never evolved quick enough to sort of catch up with our modern times. And our bodies are ancient. They still expect us to undergo a famine sometimes. They still expect us to, go and till the garden and grow our own food and not grow the same food every single season. So our bodies haven't evolved enough to catch up with the fact that we can now eat anything every single day. And this is why we have a nutrition problem.
So if we look at, let's look at first we're going to look at what the benefits of fats are. If you look at Hollywood now, that's the town where cosmetic surgery is the main thing. And if you look at it now, the biggest surgery in Hollywood, fortunate or unfortunate enough,
is BBL.
Yeah, it's BAM.
Yes.
And one thing I think most people don't understand, the one part on the human body that does not age or age slowest is the human BAM. Majority of people, If you look at Queen Nandi, Shaka Zulu, and you went during those days, you'll find a woman's youth or a man's youth is defined by how mobile and how shapely and how big your bum is. But majority of people nowadays, unfortunately, and this comes back to one of the programs that we do at Dream Body Fitness, you'll find everybody, we big proponents that whoever comes in here has to swing a kettlebell. And the main point of that is, if your bum is muscular, 50% of your metabolism is active. And you will find, and if you look around, you'll find a lot of people walk like this. And they are suffering from their bum is asleep. You know, if a bum is asleep, then the chances of you being, your metabolism being higher is lower. So Billy, we want to take people through the benefits of eating fat to allay that fear of looking at fats. So we go through that, and then we will take them through the different kinds of fats.
Yes. Okay. Right. So fat, guys, is important because it's a good energy source for starters. So at par, in fact, fat sustained energy. So in fact, a gram of fat produces almost twice the same amount of energy as a gram of carbohydrate. So in terms of energy, energy giving, fats actually are a better form of an energy giver than carbohydrates. And you find they also they give you energy without the activation and spikes of insulin. So you actually find that a lot of recommendations nowadays are that people that suffer from metabolic conditions to eat more fat and lesser carbs. So the proportion of carbs to fat in their diet is such that fat is a little bit more than carbs, and that way they don't get that insulin spikes in their systems. So fat is a very critical source of energy.
But I need to jump in there. Sorry to cut you short. I need to jump in there. There's one thing you're talking about from a caloric point of view. Because if you look at the other macronutrients, if you look at carbohydrates and you look at protein, a gram of protein gives you 4 calories. A gram of fat gives you 9 calories. And I think from a mathematical point of view, most people get it wrong, thinking that if I eat fat, automatically I'm eating double the calories and I'm going to get fatter. And that's why fats get a very negative rap there. And I think one of the things, Billy, we have to talk about here is we have to talk about the hormonal response to different macronutrients. The response, the carbohydrate or sugar response, hormonal response from an insulin spike point of view is totally different from when it comes to fat response, the hormonal response to your fat intake.
Absolutely.
So what was the second thing here now?
Right, so then the second part, fat is also a critical component of your structure in your body. So a lot of your hormones, for example, are from a fat base. They're made of fat. Okay. In your cells.
So I will call this hormonal health?
Hormone health, yes.
Okay.
Hormone balance, hormone health is dependent on fat. I mean, it's so critical that, for example, if you have ladies that are athletes who really get to become super lean, because they've become lean, they don't have enough fat to produce enough hormones to support their menstrual cycles. And sometimes they have, a lot of athletes suffer from this cessation of menstruation while they partake in their sport. So that's, yes, so fat is that critical for just our general functionality. And your cells, those structures you find in between your cell membrane are fats, and they determine what goes in and what doesn't go in and out of your cells. So they are critical in controlling such important processes within your cells, depending on what that cell's function is. So it's literally that level of importance. So
because I'm jumping in there, you're talking about structure.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most common things that we all agree with is the fastest aging body part on most human beings is our face.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we'll notice as we get older, the skin becomes thinner, and the cheekbone starts, the skin starts hanging loose. Yeah. And that's the part also where fats plays in terms of that fullness. You know, a young person has more, a fuller, tighter skin because the fat cushions it.
Yes, the adipose. You have stored fat called adipose under your skin, yes.
Okay. What else are we looking at here, Billy, from a cushioning, joint cushioning point of view.
Yes, yes.
How does fats cushion our joints?
So fat plays an important role in the structures of the stuff that allows your joints to have that cushioning effect. So if you didn't have that, you would literally be grinding your joints all day long. So fat plays an important role in the formation of those structures.
So how does fat protect my heart?
Fat is important for your heart because it sort of surrounds, there's an element of fat that surrounds your heart structure, sort of protecting it from its surroundings. If there's any form of light impact that comes around you, fat has that element of cushioning it and just protecting. So it plays that critical, important role in that.
Beautiful. Now let's look at the kinds of fat so that people, to allay also the fear of fats here.
Yes.
When we talk about the white fats and the brown fats, what is the difference between these two?
So suppose that at its key, the brown fat is the fat that you have mostly around inside your stomach in the form of you call it you say the stomach cavity has the fat that comes in and surrounds your organs, and that's the brown fat. And then you have the white fat, mostly the one that you have under the skin in other parts of the body.
Your subcutaneous fat.
Subcutaneous fat, yes.
Subcutaneous
fat.
fat. And we have the other one we call
what's the term?
What is the name? We have our visceral fat.
Yeah, visceral fat. Yeah, that's the word.
Visceral fat, the fat. Fish is clever than all of us.
Much.
Visceral fat that is around and inside your organs. Yeah. So when it comes to this, one thing that most of us have to understand, they all play very many different roles when it comes to your health and when it comes to your longevity. Now, sources, Billy. What are the sources of fats here?
Right, so luckily fat comes from different sources that also come with protein in most cases. So you have, for example, fish. For me, fish...
So even before you finish
yes.
there, I think we come back here
yes.
to the benefits of fats.
Yeah.
When we talk about fish, we're talking about omega-3s.
Yes.
What does that have to do with inflammation?
When it comes to inflammation, one of the things that fat is actually very critical for is helping minimize inflammation. Omega-3s help take away free radicals in the body. When you eat certain substance, you eventually, at the end of point of metabolism, produce what's called free radicals. This can lead to, free radicals can lead to damage of cells through, damage in the DNA, and eventually leads to things like cancer and other different metabolic diseases that we might have. Omega-3s help with inflammation, they help get rid of free radicals, and that's such an important function in health.
So that's one thing. The negos, when we're talking about inflammation, they're the most common things. Inflammation, unfortunately, most people don't understand. High blood pressure is inflammation. Heart disease is inflammation. Most of us only think of inflammation as the pain in your shoulder, in your lower back, or in your knees. And inflammation is one of the biggest killers.
Absolutely.
Of most people. So omega-3s, which is a fat, plays a very big role. And there is a study that was done very well, and you will always find that people that are born near water or in most coastal towns, they have bigger brain power than people that are born in the inland. And the one causative effect of this is purely because of the amount of omega-3s they eat. And omega-3's main source in most cases, of course, is fish. Now that brings us to sources. What kind of fish are we looking at?
So you want those oily fish, you want those mackerel, you want those fish that are extremely oily. You could have, I suppose ideally nowadays we have
salmon.
Salmon is great. We have the mercury issues also. Sometimes you want to maybe eat more of the freshwater fish than the sea fish, but you benefit either way.
Okay. The cheapest one you can get here is sardines.
Exactly, sardines, yes. In fact, sardines are so healthy, they're so incredible.
And cheap, easily available.
Yeah.
Sources, what else? What are the other sources?
So you could get if you're a non-animal protein person, you could get your fats from nuts. Nuts are a good source of almonds are a good source of
nuts and seeds.
Fats, and nuts and seeds, good source of fats.
Avocados.
Avocados are amazing. Avocados.
You've got your olive oil.
Olive oil is a good source.
Extra virgin.
Yeah.
Cold pressed.
Yeah, it's a great sauce.
Billy, what else do you have to tell them for us to wrap this?
So fats have over such a long time been the bad boy of weight loss, of nutrition. We were taught for so long that, don't eat fats because fats are bad for you. In fact, there's a whole industry that's been formed around low-fat food because the assumption has always been that fat is bad for our health. But the good news is that fat is actually not the culprit. And one of the great things that we're going to teach people is to just understand the roles that these micronutrients play and understand how they influence your hormones, because that's a very important part. If you don't understand how macronutrients influence your hormonal production, especially hormones like insulin, which are so essential in not only just inflammation, but also essential in just sugar control, but essential in determining whether you're going to get diabetes or not. That's literally how controlling insulin hormone is important. So we want to just take people through all that and just help them understand these concepts deeper.
Now, always remember, it's not what you eat that makes you put on weight. It's not what you eat that makes you unhealthy. It is your hormonal response to what you eat. The most important thing is you got to always understand how do your hormones relate or respond to the kind of macro or nutrients that you put in. Anything that spikes up insulin, insulin is a fat storing hormone. Anytime your insulin goes up, your blood sugar level needs to be regulated, and whatever sugar is in your bloodstream has to be stored somewhere. And if your glycogen levels, which is your sugar in your body, is high, chances are it's only can be stored in the places that you don't want. And just most chances that will be on your hips and on your bums. See you next time. Remember to always stay great. Myself and Billy will see you next time. Stay healthy, be fit, and keep on being strong.
Thank you. See you next time.